I'm not violent. I'm the violence. I'm channeling what was done to me. I'm pure. Because he was the victim.
Right.
And you're attached by a psychological umbilical cord to your base. And then one day, I just decided to go, look what you survived, bro. And everything the whole energy just switched. Okay, you took that beating and you still love your mum. You're still a loving person. Look how you bled like that and you never told anybody. Look how you kept your mouth shut because the neighbours might have heard and your mum would have got in trouble. So even though you were in pain, you kept your mouth shut. You're a special, honourable, loving person. That became my new route. Looking at things in detail and just being like, wow. Try your best to just be wow about something. Do you know what I mean? It will save your life. All the cruelty, all the shit that they ever did, I still make people cry when I write poems. That part's indestructible. Everybody thinks that the rage is indestructible, but the love is the one that's indestructible. And the ability to be an artist. You can lock me in a concrete cell, man. If you don't give me a pen, I'll remember it. People expect that when they see love, they're going to see hate, but if you look closely at mine,
Love and good.
of good, that's what hands are for.
It doesn't get any realer than Johnny Bang Reilly, who's been many things in his life. He's been a transient, he's been homeless, he's been a street fighter, a bare-knuckle boxer, dancer, choreographer, and now he is a voiceover specialist. Johnny has been there, done that. And you'll hear in the very beginning of this episode, he started off with a very rough childhood, being abandoned as a baby, 7 days old. He struggled being the child of a mixed race father and mother, and has been dealing with his anger management with his fists. 52 years old, he's claimed he's never lost a street fight, except when he was stabbed 3 times, and Johnny gets even more and more interesting. Nowadays, he's found ways to try to manage his anger, to try to understand his feelings of himself, and he channels this any way he can. His voiceovers are incredible. His poetry is moving. His videos are amazing, and that's why we had to have him on London Real. And again, Johnny is the epitome of real, and he speaks straight from the heart, and I was gripped and riveted the entire time. I expect this to be one of our most special episodes ever, so please pay attention to this. Listen to this man and take in what he has to say. He is still on a mission. He is now treating his body like a temple. He's very strict about his diet and everything that he puts in his body and his mind. So I'll leave you with Mr. Johnny Bang Reilly. It will be something memorable, I know. Last night, we had the BAFTA world premiere of our feature film, Dorian Yates' Inside the Shadow. It was huge, it was amazing, Dorian loved it, and it will easily be our most watched ever piece of content in London Real history. It's gonna be out soon. We'll be telling you more on email. If you're not on our email list, go to our website and sign up with social media, and you will get first look at this amazing piece of work. And also, people are asking me, Brian, I wanna turn my passion into a business. How can I do that? Well, you know, with the Business Accelerator, that's what we do here. We're gonna have our greatest class ever, and applications end March 27th. So get yours in soon, and I will see you inside the Academy. This is London Real. I'm Brian Rose. My guest today is Johnny Bang Reilly, the transient poet, fighter, dancer, choreographer, filmmaker, fashion designer, and voiceover artist. You were born in Britain, started boxing at 8 years old, where you both used violence and were a product of violence at home. You've been homeless, fought bare-knuckle boxing matches, and trained with some of the best martial artists in Europe. These days, you focus on movement, nutrition, and producing epic short films that feature your spoken word poetry and your background in fighting. Johnny, welcome to London Real. It's nice to have you here.
Cool, man.
Where do we start with you? There's a lot to talk about.
Wherever you want to start.
Tell me about when you were born and where and what was it like back then?
I was born in Park Royal Hospital, London, and I was brought up in the area of Willesden Green to an Irish mother who had an extramarital affair with somebody that she was working with. She had an Irish husband, and I think pretty much I wasn't what she wanted to pop out.
Your father wasn't Irish, I guess.
No, my real father's Jamaican.
Jamaican.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I was born, and at first it was, oh, he's got yellow jaundice.
This is in the 60s.
Yeah, 64. So then I think I was at home about a week, and then my mother reported that I was kidnapped. And it ended up on the front page of a newspaper called The Herald, which is turned into the Sun newspaper with the Beatles, for a nationwide manhunt looking for me. But the Johnny Reilly they were looking for was a white Johnny Reilly. So I can't remember if it was the same day that I was reported missing. I was found in a park called Gladstone Park. Some school kids heard me in a bush, and I was pretty beaten up. Brought back to the hospital. My mother said, "That's not mine." So I was left in another room. And I know all this from my social reports because I got them after, because I was in care for a while, children's homes. And then when you're a certain age, you can get all the reports. So I was able to read the whole breakdown. And the midwife was like, "That's her kid." One of my uncles came and he said, "That's her son." But the police were looking for the white Johnny Reilly because it was feasible to them that a black woman really disliked me and swapped me for this white child that they were looking for, which is highly racist. When it turned out that, they said, "Oh, let's do a blood test," which they must have lied about, because they said that my mother's husband was my father and she is indeed my mother. So they put me back with the same woman.
And she had she had abandoned you in the bushes?
Well, my stepfather thinks that she left me there. I wasn't kidnapped at all.
Right.
But I don't know, so I'm not going to pursue that. I just ended up in the bushes, and I know that when I read the social report from the midwife, said I was bruised, pretty beaten up, and there was a cut on my heel of my foot. I still have the scar there.
Okay. And you're 1 week old at this point.
Pretty much.
Not the easiest thing to survive, at that point.
2 weeks exactly.
2 weeks.
14
okay.
days. I remember now.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 14 days old.
So things started off well for you.
Survivor, yeah.
And what was the rest like?
Well, they essentially put me back in the house of my abuser. So I think my, psychiatry or that type of institution wasn't very good at their job at the time. My mother, I can't give a prognosis of what mental state my mother was in, but I know that my mother was popping pills as long as I've known her. And she couldn't control her emotions, which resulted in her hitting me with blunt instruments a lot. I remember being knocked out regular. And a particular occasion, because I was always messing around, we was coming from church, because Roman Catholic,
Okay.
coming from church, and I pulled my trousers down and walked with my underwear on the street when we were coming back from church, and my little sister, who is my stepfather's daughter, blonde-haired and blue-eyed, told my mother, Johnny pulled his pants down, and my mother beat me with a broomstick, and these big lumps would come up, but I think she hit the same spot again. And I remember being comatose, and all I remember is I saw my two sisters sitting with these white socks on the settee, and it was spraying with blood. The socks just went, there was just blood, so it must have been spurting out of my head.
How old are you at this point?
Young.
5.
Yeah. 7 or 8, something like that.
And that's
we
the
were living in
visual.
Warm Lane then, you know what I mean? So I remember that, and I remember that she scared her own mother, because I remember one time her own mother was trying to protect me, and she picked up a candelabra with like these lion's feet and said, if you don't let him go, I'll kill him with this, you know? And, you know, occasions where she would hit me with shoes and the heel would stick in my head, and I was climbing up my bunk bed and I thought there was hair on my neck and it was blood. And I was like, Mummy, I'm bleeding. And then I was taken downstairs to there was a couple lived downstairs, and a guy called Peter came and tried to squeeze the hole in my head closed, and don't tell your father, my stepfather, tell him you were jumping off the wardrobe. Because I was always climbing stuff and jumping off stuff and hyperactive. Because years later I spoke to Mother and said, why did you beat me so much? She said, you were very hyperactive.
Okay.
And her husband was a womanizer, and kind of just basically left her alone with the kids, you know what I mean? So,
Okay.
and I was very boisterous, and because of the lack of value at home, I was compensating. And then there's racism at school, and one of the biggest things that stuck with me about my perception of humanity was that a particular individual can walk around a playground of all these different human beings and say, I've got this idea. You see that guy? Let's fill up this teacup, plastic teacup that we have at lunch with sputum, with spit. And everybody agreed to the point they filled it up. And then the boy came and poured it on my head. And I was like, why did it you decided that on just because of the way I look? And that's when I decided that I need to learn to fight. And everything changed from that point of view, do you know what I mean? And I just became obsessed with power because my power was constantly taken away. You know, is the right word asphyxiated under pillows and stuff like that. To the point of one time, she was smothering me, and I was kicking so hard that those days you had gas fires, but the flue was kind of in a chimney, and I kicked it out of the wall. That was the strength, because I remember symbols of my struggle. I don't remember all the details.
Yeah.
But replaying that throughout my life made me very aggressive, sensitive, and probably because of the head trauma, I couldn't control my impulses. So if you disrespected me as I started to grow into my body, and then, you know, I was obsessed with fighting. And because I'm a poet now, I look at everything symbolically. And I remember we was having it in a geography class, and you use this compass where you put a pencil in this one, and then there's the needle and you make a circle. And there was a little screw, and I used to undo the screw, and it fitted perfectly in a fountain pen, the spiky end. And I just screwed that up. That was my hidden weapon. So I was making weapons when everybody was trying to find their way around the world. I was making weapons. And it was just constantly like playing out in my head how to protect myself. And I remember seeing a thing recently, this lady, she'd done this thing called the blue-eyed experiment, where she took professional people and put collars around their neck, and she used the same model as racists use on black people in the classroom, in the plays. Said you're insignificant, and wouldn't answer their questions and ignored them. And that stressful environment for 20 minutes, all of these professionals started making mathematical mistakes, spelling mistakes. Because of the stress, the brain didn't work. So I have no diplomas, no education. The only thing that I had was two things. I could draw, I could move, and I could fight. And that was it. But as soon as I started to grow into my body, one day my mother tried to hit me with the broomstick and I took it off of her and poked her with it. And I think at that point she realized that she created this monster she couldn't deal with anymore and sent me to go and live with my stepfather who had left. He's an alcoholic and a womanizer. So at 12 years old, I'm living with this guy. He's never around. And every time I would see him, he'd just give me money and go away. So I never went to school. I was on the street. You know what I mean?
And this is what, at what age now?
12.
12, okay.
Yeah.
So now you're in London still?
I was in London,
Okay.
yeah. But because I never went to school and all of those things, then they decided to move me outside of London into a children's home on the coast in Hastings.
Okay.
When I landed there, I met skinheads.
Okay. And this is now mid-70s. Okay.
Yeah.
So not a lot of open minds. And probably less so when you're out of the
I was in a
urban
children's home called Guessling. And in Hastings, if there was any black boys, they were from that kids' home. So we were fighting non-stop.
Okay. And what kind of things were you studying fight-wise? You started to study boxing.
Boxing was my initial thing because I was starting to, I was picking people off that that were bullying me.
Okay.
I would catch them on their own, you know what I mean, and do my thing. And it was just like, that they sent me to child guidance because they thought I was a little bit bordering on being dangerous. I think I broke my first nose at 8, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With knees.
Okay.
And then they threw me into boxing. It just gave me more tools, you know what I mean? And then when I went to Hastings, I realized about speed because a lot of these skinhead boys, they fight very quick. Then I was kicked in the face when I was on the floor. I said, oh, everything's changed now. So then I started doing soccer kicks, headbutts, biting ears, you know what I mean, eye gouging. And that was my gladiator university there.
Okay. And these fights would not happen at school now, they would happen on the streets.
Yeah, I mean, the children's home, we had like an in-house school, but the staff would fight with the kids, had fist fights, and it was a madhouse, you know what I mean? And then when I went back to my social report, that this particular children's home had changed its name about 5 times because the staff didn't know what they were doing. I mean, some of them were having sex with the girls that they were supposed to be looking after. It was a madhouse. When I went there, I was like pretty decent kid, and I had this social worker called Mrs. Mansfield, who was really posh, but loved me to bits. And she went there, and there was like, I think I was there for a couple of months, and she was like, he's glue sniffing. I said, but how did he start? He wasn't glue sniffing when he came here. And I was just obsessed with glue sniffing every day, because it was hallucinate. And I had this friend called Little John, who I haven't seen since. I really hope I see him again. Both of us were in this children's home called Guessling. And he was my glue sniffing partner. Every day we're just in Alice in Wonderland. But then that didn't do any good for my brain. And what I know now about the micro world that happens inside us with our glands and hormones, the amount of stress because of the poison I was putting on my body, that all the messengers that are in the hormones were going in one way, cortisol. Like Pac-Man was eating up everything, so I couldn't control my emotions, I couldn't control my reflexes, everything was just mental.
And what happens as we get into teenage years and later?
I started to dance because in those days, if you could dance, I think John Travolta happened.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of attention from girls, and that's how I offset all the racism, because girls liked you and they were nice to you.
Okay.
So I needed that psychologically, I think.
That's healthy, as opposed to staying on the aggressive
Fighting all the time, you know what I mean? Softer. So I was like, I need to dance. I'm a survivor, so I learnt. And then I went for an audition in London for a dance group. And they released me from the children's home at 16. I was a glassblower originally, apprentice glassblower. and I came to London, but the dance company didn't happen. Then I was effectively just left on the street. And going around all the clubs and stuff like that, I met this guy called Danny Carr. He was a big giant, he was like, reminded me of Frank Bruno, massive, great big guy. And he used to just he left his own home, and we used to live in this car, this old Morris, belonged to this guy called Andy Anwar. And his parents were working all the time. I think he was a Pakistani guy. And he would let us sleep in the car. And when his parents went to work, I think the car, they didn't use it. And then he would let us in and give us a bit of naan bread, and we would take the gravy off of the pots and stuff like that. And that's what we was eating. And sometimes a girl would buy us a burger, and we would steal Mars bars and stuff. I don't know how I survived in that nutrition, but still obsessed with dancing.
Okay.
And then I discovered the Pineapple Dance Studios.
I know it.
Yeah. And as the classes are changing over from one teacher to another, sometimes there's a 30-minute gap. So I would use the mirror and do my thing, but then the place is full of people from record companies, and they were like doing the auditions, and they're like, no, we want him. And then I just started working, and one of my first jobs was with Adidas. And I think at the time, who was the tryout? Daley Thompson? Yeah. Daley Thompson was like the big guy here at the time, and we did this tour of Germany with Adidas and stuff like that. And it was like modeling sportswear, but with dance routines and stuff. And I was fine once I was working, but when the work stopped and I had to be out on the street again, if anybody, this word, respect, got me into a lot of trouble.
Okay, so you were on edge. In retrospect, were you looking for it, or do you think you were ultra sensitive?
From where I'm sitting now?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens is that if you're an abused kid, you look for signs of an abuser, aggression, any of these type of things. So I walk in a room, and you want to put on this persona that I'm no sucker, then somebody else that might be an abused kid sees you and goes, well, I need to take him out. And then you see him, and you, like magnets, boom. And I'm frequenting environments of disenfranchised people. So the percentage of abused kids in a room is pretty high.
It's just a numbers game. You go into a big enough room, there's going to be a fight.
Yeah.
And again, they're probably just like you, right?
You know what I mean? Low value. You know what I mean? Can't do it financially. Can't wear nice gear. Can't have nice things. Can fight though. You know what I mean? That guy getting all that attention from those women, I can prostrate him and take his manhood away. You know what I mean?
Low value. You say if someone feels low value, that's the way they can build up.
Cheaper, innit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't have to wear a name brand. You knock out the guy with the name brand.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a weird place to be, you know what I mean? Highly stressful, very unhealthy to yourself, let alone other people. Heart rate's up all the time.
Yeah.
It's decaying. From where I'm at now,
yeah.
I don't know how that kid survived. I don't know how he even operated.
Can you spot these kids a mile away in
Definitely.
London?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They come at me because they see, you know, I wear my scars, you know what I mean? But they see the calmness and how did you get like that? And I'm like, I'm at your disposal. You know what I mean? For sure. It's very easy, simpler than you think.
What does that mean, I'm at your disposal?
I'm here for you. As long as you keep turning up, you have my complete dedication. You know what I mean? Because there's no need to waste your soul like that. Absolutely no need. All these kids need is somebody to give them the attention. Mum can't. Busy, trying to feed them. You know what I mean? And there's I can't change the environment, but I can't refuse anybody that, because of what I've learned is so easy. The only gripe I have with it is to be healthy is so expensive. And I'm like, you've got all these kind of new age people that are supposed to be so centered, but your industry cuts off all the people that need you because they can't afford it. So, you know, you're only catering for a particular, if I wanted, for instance, say to a parent whose kid is definitely toxic from metal intoxication and plastics, and I say, well, you know, you need to give them chlorella before they sleep. To buy clean chlorella that's cracked so that it can work in your system is expensive, usually from another country. You know what I mean? So I don't know how we're going to sort that out. I'm a big believer in adaptogens, especially with kids that deal with stress, because then you're going to get the fight or flee. The cortisol is going to get released, and this kid's going to do one or two things, because microbially inside, his nervous system's telling them there's a saber-toothed tiger. So the three things happen: they run from any type of commitment that gives them stress, or they'll stick their feet in and fight, or they'll get fat because the internal organ's saying there is stress, and it could be either where there's a famine, so they'll start just storing fat because of the stress. Most people are not fat, you know, from food. They're fat from their body is now just into storing rather than getting rid of, because of the whole environment is constant stress. We're supposed to have that stress once or twice in our life. We live with it every day.
Take me through end of the teens in London. What happens next? You start training some boxing. Are you kind of transient now? Are you living anywhere in particular, or?
I kind of never really lived anywhere. Always lived with friends and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And then, because I fought really well, and for me it was a life and death situation. Most kids fight out of ignorance. You know, they fight, you put some in the headlock, give them a couple of punches, you go home. I was introduced to when violence happens, you could lose your life, from my mother. So every time I fought, it was somebody has to be asleep for me to feel safe, or you have to put me asleep. You know what I mean? And most people I fight are actors. Most people, they're just actors.
Actors. Even
Everybody
in the
could,
street.
yeah, most of them.
Most of them.
You know, you have to understand something. Everybody can start a fight. Couple of beers, throw a punch. But you punch somebody that punch means something real to them. So they're going, I don't want you to hit me again, because you're not going to stop. I'm used to people that want to have me destroyed. So I'm taking it for real. Now I'm breaking the ribs and smashing the liver of somebody's kid, a civilian, so to speak. I didn't know he was acting. Then you get a reputation. That leads to getting in a fight and somebody says, I'm not having him break my jaw. So you get stabbed multiple times. So I had to recover from that. Punctured lung. That's a weird experience. Can't breathe in or out. You know, and you're drowning inside your body.
And that happened when you thought it was a bare knuckle boxing fight, or that was just a street fight?
No, it was on the street. The guy came, I was doing a show, I was dancing on a show here called Soul Train. They had a British version of it.
Okay.
And the kid came up and tried to pretend he knew me more than what he did. I didn't really know him. And he came up and kind of hugged me from behind. And I slipped out of it and I was like, what are you doing? And then he got embarrassed because of everybody else. And then started reaching in, and I said, if you take that out, I'm gonna make you eat it. And he goes, come around the corner. And I'm like, oh, cool, let's go. Went around the corner, boom, one straight in my chest. Then one in my rib.
Yeah.
But I wrapped that and hit him. He let go of the knife. So I pulled it out, but now, I'm grateful for what happened, because for sure I had to kill him. The mood, you threatened my life, I'm on another level now. Mm. But his friend put one in my back and took my ear away. And that was exactly the right thing to do for everybody to leave and be alive. Because if I would have killed him.
You would have killed him, and who knows what happened.
Yeah.
And that punctured you lung from the back?
From the back. The one from behind got me in the back.
And you really felt like it took your air out?
It was gone. You know what I mean? I couldn't breathe in or out. It was, I was making this noise, you know? And, but I remember my sister, my older sister, when I was in hospital, I woke up, my mother was standing at the end of the bed. She's like, oh, thank God. And my sister was like, thank God. She goes, he's going to be 100 times worse. And I looked at her, I thought, that's a bit heartless. She was like, because now he thinks he's Superman because he survived this.
Was she right?
And it played out. Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Was that your Irish accent, by the way, there?
What, thank God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And this was how old?
I was in my 20s by then.
Okay. So you did become Superman after that, or you felt like you were?
I went from registering that I'm in a fight when you hit me to if you just purse your lips, it's on. You know, because I had to, now.
Right, you might die now.
You know what I mean?
Be careful. Okay.
Yeah. And then I carried a weapon for a while, and I was like, smart enough to know that, man, I'm gonna use this every time. You know what I mean? So I literally had to just keep those things away from me. I'll just stick with these, you know. Yeah. But in between, there was great art and dancing and, do you know what I mean? And stuff like that. But it's just the stressors that release that fight reflex. Most of it's amplified by my own warped sense of reality as far as human beings. And then probably the trauma that I had to my brain that makes it impossible for me to control my impulses. So I was diagnosed with bipolar. I won't know till I'm dead whether I got CTE. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the symptoms sound pretty much there. My long-term memory's okay, short-term memory sucks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've made 2 drinks for myself before, or had the remote control on my chest and looking around for it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And CTE is this disease we're seeing a lot in American football players and others where just multiple concussions stacked up over time.
And it doesn't happen at the time, it happens later.
Right. And it leads to some crazy stuff, some depression and
Suicide.
And a lot of these guys, when they're committing suicide, they're shooting themselves in the chest because they want their brain to be examined afterwards. And you know, it's really scary, sad stuff that American football is going to have to end up paying for probably the next 20 years, and people aren't talking about it enough, I don't think.
No head strikes, man.
Yeah.
Period. I know a lot of parents are going to probably feel, you know, our egos are crazy things, you know what I mean? It's like you get all of this proof, but because you've put your son in boxing for the past 2 years, you carry on because you don't want to be seen as that you made a mistake. So you keep him in the boxing rather than putting your hands up going, I made a really stupid decision here. Because the headgear is only for stopping you from getting cut.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop the brain from crashing against the skull. Most boxers don't get punch drunk, which is a nice word. You ain't punch drunk, you've got brain damage, like serious. It doesn't happen in the actual combat of being in the ring. It happens during the training. You're sparring with guys that know you. They know what you're going to do, so you're going to get punished a lot more. Your sparring partner sees you every day. He knows all your holes and your weaknesses. You know what I mean? And then you get like, it's different if you're living the life where, you know, you're healthy and you're sharp. But you get these MMA fighters that only get in shape 6 weeks before they fight. So they go from doing nothing to extreme getting battered. You know what I mean? So it's only a matter of time before that stuff turns up in MMA as well.
Yeah, it's slowly starting to with a few retired UFC fighters.
Yeah, because the audience doesn't want to see people rolling around on the floor. Only people that really understand jiu-jitsu. Yeah. That's exciting for them. You know what I mean? They want, I guarantee you their promoters are telling them you must stand up. We need more stand up.
Yeah, 95% of the highlight reels are knockouts and strikes. When did your violence hit rock bottom, or when did you realize I got to start thinking a different way?
I'm not violent.
Okay.
I'm the violence.
Explain that.
I'm just channeling it. I'm pure. I was a baby in diapers, never had any of these things. I'm channeling what was done to me. I'm just the speaker, man. I'm playing the music.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not violent. None of these kids are violence. They are the violence.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And as soon as people, you know, I've been incarcerated for an illness. You know, go and see, I'll go and see a shrink, part of my anger management course. So they come and see us every 2 weeks. I say, I need to see you every week. So I'm tired of this stuff. And I'm conditioned to take instruction. Instruct me. How do I use my brain? What patterns do I use? No, it's not about that. Just come and tell me what you did for the past week. So I'll tell you a nice story about the details of my week. Now and again, you glance at the clock. Now I don't trust you anymore. Do you know what I mean? Or you've fallen asleep as I'm talking to you. You're not doing your job too well. Now I'm going to start clamming up and disliking you, and why am I here? Go, okay, see you next week, your time is up. See you next week, your time is up. Don't learn anything. Actually coming out of the sessions more angry because I'm being failed. And then at the end of the session, the only time the guy gives me instruction is, can you come to the computer? Let me show you how to fill out this form to get more funding to keep on your therapy. This is the only time you're going to talk to me about, give me instruction on something. And I'm telling you that one day I'm going to hit somebody that's not genetically not built for it, and they're not going to get up. I fight on the street. I'm going to stun them standing up, and they're going to hit the pavement, and they're not going to get up.
These are the mental health professionals, or this is just anybody?
Mental health professionals,
okay.
Yeah. You know, need medication is within the first 30 minutes.
Right. You said you had like kind of a realization because you used to channel a lot of anger when you would go back to that 8-year-old boy and think about your mom.
Yeah, because he was the victim.
Right.
And you're attached by a psychological umbilical cord to your base. Your formative years. Who's that guy? Because when the times get tough, you have to, who are you? Who am I? You have to use your memory. Who am I? What have I been through? Same with a fighter, you know, the ones that are the most serene are the ones that have been through all the stuff that they thought was going to be frightening until they experienced it. Now they're on the other side of it. So these guys now, they're cool. So I'm looking at this reference point, but I'm always seeing him as the victim. He's scaring the life out of me today, sending that message through that umbilical cord to my adult structure. And then one day, I just decided to go, look what you survived, bro. And everything just, the whole energy just switched. I never ever looked at him being victimized or this shouldn't have happened to you. I was like, okay, you took that beating and you still love your mum. You're still a loving person. Look how you bled like that and you never told anybody. Look how you kept your mouth shut because the neighbours might have heard and your mum would have got in trouble. So even though you were in pain, you kept your mouth shut. You're a special, honourable, loving person. That became my new root. And it affected me in the now, dynamically.
When did that happen?
A few years ago.
Okay, all right. And that was like major turning point.
Completely.
You just reframe that whole
I was sitting in jail once. I think there's a lot of little prompters that guide you on the way. And I was just reading this book on addiction. Because I had a crack addiction, you know, altering my brain set. You know, the drugs are not addictive. It's wanting to alter your brain. That's what's addictive. It's driven by pain. These are just the tools. Yeah. They don't do anything on their own. And I just got tired of the hangovers and the stress that my body went through because I had so much altering to do. I took vast amounts of drugs. Right. Do you know what I mean? I never wanted to have my brain, well, they say come down, but go back to its normal state. And
because that was painful.
It's like this, a white knuckle ride. Not because I'm worried about other people, because of the thoughts I'm having in my head, what I'm willing to do to survive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a life, you know. As a fighter, you go through the motions, you know, the drills. What do you do? If he does this, I'm going to do this. You know, for instance, if I get the knife off you, I'm going to stab you in your armpits. That's horrible, man. Imagine trying to recover with that, all those glands and stuff that's up there. You're not going to be the same ever again. Or stick it under your chin through your tongue. You know what I mean? because I have to stop you, and I'm small. You know what I mean? And so, you know, trying to get away from that, just eased up a little bit on drugs. Cocaine doesn't ease you up, but it allows the brain that wants stimulus from outside to just go internally, like Ritalin, what they give to kids is as good as crack. They're just running around in a hamster wheel inside their head. The body looks calm because the brain's occupied. But the stresses that are going on, the amount of insulin being released from the pancreas and adrenaline and cortisol soup that you're sitting in, it's people getting twitches because the hormones are not going to relax the body anymore. Part of the brain switches off because it's not about being intelligent, it's about running and fighting or storing energy. So I was in jail and I was reading about addiction, and besides the point of them trying to sell their drugs within the book, they said reverence. Reverence changes, thoughts have power. I'm repeating on a loop this recording of my past that's affecting me now. Change the tune. So I wrote this poem about I'm going to mug a bumblebee, because I started to, I wanted to get my multivitamins and stuff like that from nature rather than rock, shaved rock. You know what I mean? So I like bee pollen. And I studied it so much that one time a bumblebee was flying, and I was like, if I catch him, I'm going to get fresh bee pollen. And I was like, I'm literally standing there, I'm going to mug this bumblebee. And I just started to look at life in detail. I started looking at butterflies. And then I remember this is what I did as a kid. Like my mother would iron my shorts after I'd been out all day, and they would crackle because they were full of ladybirds. Do you know what I mean? And I was always like, catching butterflies and putting sugar in a jar, and I put like little breathing holes in the top so I could watch it and listen to it flutter around. I even used to put flies in my mouth and go like this to feel how they fly around inside my mouth. And all of those things, I remember how they made me feel. I didn't feel anything about the environment that I was in anymore. But I wasn't intelligent enough at the time, or didn't know what I know now, is that I was changing the atmosphere inside my body.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, and I'll see you on the inside.